Well, as the year wraps up, something that I like to do is to spend time in reflection, looking back on the previous year and looking ahead and thinking about what I want my life to look like going forward. And as I've been doing that, I've identified a handful of items that I want to refrain from buying in 2024. These are all things that I either have enough of already or that I've wasted money on in the past. I want to challenge myself not to buy any more of. This is something that I like to do every year. I find that it helps me to save money and avoid accumulating excess. So I've got 10 things I want to share with you today that I will not be buying in 2024. Then be sure to stick around to the end where I'll be recapping my no buy goals from last year and we'll see how I did with them. But now let's get right into this. And the first thing that I will not be buying in 2024 is junk food and novelty items. In the past year, I've noticed that I can sometimes have a tendency of buying food items that look or sound interesting without necessarily having a tangible plan of how I'm going to use those items up. So I'll buy a seasonal or just a novelty bag of chips, cookies, maybe even a drink, but then it will stay in our pantry or in our fridge for months without ever getting eaten. The thing is, apart from when we have get-togethers with friends, Christopher and I don't really eat a lot of junk food, which of course for our health is a great thing, but because I keep buying these things, we just have a lot of food going to waste in our pantry. And so this year, I really want to commit to not buying novelty foods unless I have a tangible plan on how I'm going to use those items up. Of course, if I want to buy a seasonal bag of chips or cookies when we have friends coming over, we're hosting a party, something like that, I think that's still totally fine because those items are actually getting used. But it's those items that I'm buying without a plan and just saying, oh, we'll find a use for them. That's what I really want to cut off in 2024. I want to make sure that the food I'm buying, we are actually going to be eating, because otherwise I just end up wasting money as well as food that could go to a far better home where it's actually going to be consumed. All right, then the second thing that I want to commit to not buying in the upcoming year is maternity clothing. This is one that I really debated adding to the list because obviously I'm pregnant right now and I'm entering the season where maternity clothes are about all that fits. But the more I thought about it, the more I really realized that I didn't want to spend tons and tons of money purchasing items of clothing that I'm going to be able to wear for maximum a handful of months and then I might not ever wear ever again. So the guidelines that I want to put around this are I want to refrain from buying new maternity clothing, but then of course I'm still going to need clothing to wear. So what I want to do instead are, number one, I'm going to continue to rely on my clothing rental subscription. Been using Nuuly for a few years now. They actually have a great maternity selection, so I will definitely be relying on that for some of the more fun or dressy clothing items. I'm also going to be borrowing items from friends who've recently been pregnant, and I've been super fortunate to have several friends reach out and just offer to let me borrow some of their maternity pants and leggings and other items, and I'm actually wearing a pair of maternity leggings borrowed from a friend right now, so love that as an option. And the final option that I want to pursue is thrifting, anything that I'm not able to either borrow or rent. So that's kind of my plan for how I want to approach maternity clothing. We're gonna skip buying anything new just because I really feel like it's going to be hard to justify the cost per wear of almost anything that I'm buying new, and instead we'll be pursuing one of those three other options. Then something else that I don't want to buy in 2024 is cleaning supplies. And over the years, I've either purchased or been given a number of duplicate cleaning products. So what I really want to focus on doing this year is using up what I currently have before going out and purchasing anything else. So I want to do a bit of a use it up challenge, but then my plan is as I begin running out of cleaning products, I want to switch everything over to just a seamless cleaning system. And I've been using the Blueland cleaning tablets for several years now. They work just so well, honestly. And so I want to slowly switch over to using exclusively those, whether that's in our bathroom, our kitchen, wherever else in our home. What I really like about those is it's a great cleaner option, which is definitely important to me as we're looking at bringing a child into our home. They're also refillable, and you can just use whatever glass spray containers that you have. And so it's just one of those systems that doesn't take up a lot of space, that's not creating clutter, and it's just really easy to maintain. So that's the plan eventually, and I do actually have a lot of the pieces needed to put that plan into place, so really shouldn't need to buy anything. First things first, we've got to use up what we already have. But then next on my no-buy list for this coming year is board games. And for those of you who've ever seen our board game collection, you probably already know Christopher and I may have a few more board games than we actually need. Of course, we do really enjoy and play board games quite regularly, so I am perfectly fine with holding on to a number of them, and it does make for a very fun variety. However, we really don't need any more than we currently have. Right now, I just have all of our board games stored in a little cubby underneath our couch, which has worked really well for years because it's kind of a contained space where they can all live. The games aren't taking up space in a closet or anything like that. However, we have maxed out the storage of that space. So I really don't want to add any more board games, or our puzzles also live in there this year, because at this point, they just have to be moved somewhere else in the house. I don't really want to have an overflow in that way. So ideally, I would love to perhaps declutter a few games this year. Of course, we'll have to make sure Christopher is on board with that. But at the very least, I want to make sure that I'm not adding to them. It's one of those you don't want to have too much of a good thing situations. I really love all of the options that we have now. We have a great time using them, but I think too many more games than what we currently have would definitely result in several of them just becoming clutter. Then let's talk impulse purchases, which is another category of items that I really want to commit not to buying this year. This is a bit of a weird one because on one hand, I have noticed myself buying things a bit more freely, but at the same time, I'm still very quick to return something if I bring it into my home and don't think that I need it. So it's good in one sense that those items aren't staying in my home long term, but it's kind of resulted in a lot of back and forth. So this year, I just want to focus on being a bit more intentional with my purchases, not just buying something because I like it and seeing if it can fit somewhere in my home, then returning it when I find out that it doesn't. And instead, I really want to have a specific vision for whatever that item is that I buy, for how it's going to fit into my home and into my life. I think this is more about time saving than anything. I'd rather put that thought in at the store of how something's going to fit into my life rather than bringing it home, realizing that it doesn't, and then having to go to all of the effort of returning it. So it may sound a little weird, but I really think that this is something that I'm going to benefit from that will ultimately save me a considerable amount of time. All right, but then another kind of more tangible category of items that I don't want to buy in the upcoming year is glassware. In the past year or two, we went from having not nearly enough glassware to the point where we were always running out when entertaining or hosting, to now having more than enough. This is just one of those situations where often we'll recognize a hole or a gap that we have either in our closet, our home. In this case, it was my glassware. So we'll go out and purchase a handful of items to fill that void or that need. And so I went out, I purchased a couple sets of glassware, which we use regularly, and it really has been a useful addition to our home. But there is a point when you need to recognize, okay, I've filled that hole, I filled that need, and now it's time to stop. It's time to take a step back and just start enjoying and using what we have, not continuing to go out and to buy more and more, because that's how we waste money and that's how clutter builds up in our homes. So that's what I'm doing here. I'm recognizing I've gone out, I've filled that void, I've filled that need, and now we can just use and enjoy the glassware that we have. But then in a bit of a different vein, camera gear is something else that I don't want to purchase in the upcoming year. And camera gear is one of those things where, because filming is something that I love and it's also a significant part of my job, really justified holding on to maybe a bit more of it than I actually need. And so in the upcoming year, not only do I want to commit not to going out and purchasing new camera gear, but I also really want to focus on paring down and selling off some of my collection. Of course, there's still going to be a good bit of camera gear that I hold on to because I do love it and use it all the time. And yes, it is a part of my job, but I don't need everything that I have in order to do my job. And so where I may have excess or things that I'm not really using, I really want to focus on selling some of those off and just generally commit to paring down rather than adding to my camera gear collection in 2024. And something else that I want to have kind of a similar mindset and mentality with coming into the new year is plants. This is one that is a little bit bittersweet for me in a way, but at the end of the day, I just think makes sense. In the next year, my focus is just naturally going to shift towards taking care of a little human, which I am so excited for, but I feel like in preparation for that, I really want to focus on, at the very least, not adding to the number of plants that I currently have, and rather reducing the number of plants that I have, especially some of the high maintenance ones. So it's just not one additional thing on my plate once our baby arrives. So I've already started rehoming some of my higher maintenance plants, and it's honestly been really fun being able to give away some of the beautiful plants that I've taken care of over the years to various friends and family. Then just a couple others here. Something else that I want to commit to not buying in the upcoming year is additional subscription services. I find that these can be a major source of budget creep, because one subscription service at face value might not seem like a major financial investment. But when you have multiple of them that are all charging you quarterly, monthly, or annually, it really does add up. A few months back, I did an audit of our subscription services and was able to cancel just a handful of services, but it was costing us over $40 a month, which adds up to hundreds of dollars a year. So something that I really want to commit to in the upcoming year is just staying on top of our subscriptions and making sure that we're only keeping active the ones that we are currently using, that we're actively using. And then also too, I want to make sure that we're not just adding to the number that we have, and that if there is a subscription service that we decide that we want to add at any point this year, that we're canceling one at the same time to kind of maintain an equilibrium. That's just something practical we can do to save money, to stay on top of our finances, to make sure that we're not putting money towards things that we aren't using. Okay, then our last no buy category for 2024 is bedding and towels. In the past few years, we've purchased a handful of new bedding and towel sets to replace items that we had that were very quickly wearing out, which I'm all for replacing things that are no longer serving you. However, we are now at a point where we have what we need, and much like our glassware, I just want to commit to not buying more. In fact, I actually decluttered one of our sheet sets earlier this week because we just had more than we needed. So this year, I just want to commit to maintaining the status quo with our bedding and with our towels. If we do end up buying anything, I want to make sure that we're applying the one in, one out rule to that. So if we buy anything, something else has to go. Of course, the one exception I will make for this is baby items, because we currently have no baby bedding and no baby towels, which we will be needing. So we'll make an exception for that, but for all of the things that we regularly use, don't need to buy anymore. So those are all the items that I'm committing to not buying in 2024. Now let's take a look back on this past year and see how we did. So in 2023, I said that I didn't want to buy candles, special occasion clothing, plants, shoes, clothes that don't fit right, excess freezer food, mugs, fast food, art supplies, and puzzles. Looking at this list, I would say for the most part, we did a fantastic job. However, there were a couple of exceptions. So one of those was candles. And what I'll say with this one is I did use up a lot of our candles, and I'm on kind of like the last remaining bits of several of the ones that I was trying to use up. I've already finished off many others as well. However, I think there were 2 or 3 candles that I did buy throughout the year that I used in various home projects. So I did buy a couple, but I also used up way more than I bought as well. So overall, our total candle inventory count is significantly down from this time last year. So I would say on the whole, this was a win, but just for full transparency, I did buy a couple before I fully used up all of my previous ones. And then mugs is another one of those categories that I just felt like I had enough of already. And to be honest, with this one, I kind of forgot that I'd made this commitment. And so I ended up thrifting one. I bought one when we were in Ireland, and then I also bought one over Christmas, totally forgetting about it. So I actually bought 3 different mugs over the course of the year. And since then, I've kind of recognized that, oh, I went from having a good number of mugs to way too many. So I have since given the thrifted one to a friend. I have kept the Ireland one because that is a special memory. However, I decluttered one other from my collection, as well as returning the Christmas one I bought. So I'm actually back to where I started the year at in terms of my mug collection. But something that I really try to emphasize as I'm doing this is seeing what lesson I can learn as I'm going back and as I'm doing some of this reflection on my previous year. And the lesson that I really want to learn here is that I'm setting these goals for a reason. And one of those reasons is to save money. And if I'm going out and buying things and then getting rid of them, like, it's great that I'm not adding clutter to my home, but I want to make sure that I'm not bringing those excess items into my home in the first place. And so I just want to be more intentional about keeping some of these goals at the forefront of my mind as I'm considering potential purchases throughout the year. So those are a few areas where I feel like I fell just a bit short of the mark on, but I think it's also really important as we're looking back to celebrate some wins as well. And so 2 areas that I just want to quickly highlight that I feel like I did really well with was number 1, houseplants. Last year I said that I really wanted to focus on caring for and loving the houseplants that I already had, and that if I wanted to bring a new houseplant into my life, that I at the same time had to give one away. And I am happy to report that not only did I stick to that goal of not adding to my houseplant collection, but I think I'm actually down close to 10 plants from where I began the year. Now, I did end up buying 1 plant, which I have honestly been loving, but not only did I stick to that goal of also giving one away, I'm pretty sure I've given, it's close to 10 away at this point, and so I would really consider this one to be a huge win. And the other category that I feel like I just did really well with was special occasion clothing. And for 2023, I talked about not wanting to purchase clothing for things like Easter, Christmas, weddings, special events and occasions, items of clothing that I was only going to wear once and then probably never wear again. To me, that just didn't feel like a responsible use of my money, and so I wanted to focus on either borrowing from friends or renting clothing instead. And I am happy to report that I don't think I bought a single piece of special occasion clothing all year long. We did do a clothing swap with some friends where I got some really beautiful pieces. I actually have another one planned for the upcoming month, which I'm really looking forward to. Then I rented a number of pieces as well from Nuuly, which is what I mentioned earlier. So between those 2 things, I didn't buy a single piece of special occasion clothing, which I'm going to call a huge win. I would say just overall, looking back on this list, that really is the theme of 2023 for me. Sure, there were a handful of categories where maybe I could have done a bit better, but for the most part, there were some major victories here. That's something to be proud of and really makes me excited for this upcoming year. So I really hope that you enjoyed this look into what I won't be buying in 2024, as well as some of my successes and failures from this past year. But now I would love to know, is there anything that you committed to not buying in 2023? How did you do with your goals? Is there anything that you don't want to buy in 2024? I would love to hear your thoughts, so be sure to let me know in the comments below. Let's chat. But as always, friends, don't forget to give this video a like if you enjoyed it, and subscribe if you haven't already for more simple and intentional living videos coming at you every week. Until next time, friends, I'm wishing you all an incredible day, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.